Thank you again for joining us for Cultivating Emotional Regulation, Evidence-Based Strategies for Clinical Practice with Ruth Duran Deffley. Ruthie?
Hey, yes, thank you, Mary. Thank you, Empower Idaho, for inviting me again to present. I was with you sometime last year. And if you have any problem hearing me, Mary, just make sure you let me know so I can speak up if my voice starts to trail off. Wonderful. Yes, it's hard. I have done multiple virtual presentations now, but it's still not my preference not to see everyone's faces. So please do interact with the chat box. If you have any comments, questions, if you'd like me to clarify something, go back to a slide, speak a little slower, please give me feedback because I don't know if you don't let me know. I am presenting in Prezi. So if you're not familiar with Prezi, it zooms in and zooms out. So if you can't initially read the slide, it's going to zoom into the slide so you can read it more clearly. So just bear with the slide. But just a little bit about me, if you haven't met me before, I am a licensed clinical social worker in private practice in Savannah, Georgia. I got my master's in social work and my master's in public policy from the University of Minnesota. So I am no stranger to the Midwest, but I am originally from Mexico City. So I grew up in Mexico and came to the United States for my education and never left. I am married to someone from Southern Illinois, from Carbondale, and we met at the University of Minnesota. And now we live in Savannah, Georgia, where his family is from. And so we have a family here, 2 kids, a dog, and we love living close to the ocean. But I work with adults and couples. I see specifically, I work with complex PTSD. I practice EMDR. I am certified in trauma sensitive yoga, which we'll get into a little bit later. And with my couples, I really enjoy emotionally focused therapy, which has a really strong foundation in attachment theory. And I do work with people with addiction issues. So I see a vast array of diagnoses in my practice, and emotional regulation fits in all of that. So definitely something that I work with daily. And I wanted to provide you as clinicians with practical tools. I think a lot of what I'm going to say today might be review for some of you or most of you. So I want to honor the wisdom that is in the group. And so please make sure that you are contributing. If I omit something that you would like to add, please make sure you're adding it either to the chat box or raising your hand and unmuting yourself to share if you would like to. I definitely want to hear from you. So the goals of the session today, we want to deepen our understanding of emotional regulation frameworks. And that is going to be done by looking at different frameworks. Then we also want to integrate the practical interventions into therapy. I want us to have an experiential moment. I feel that we really learn by doing versus just sitting here listening. And so there will be moments where we will be able to have moments of practice versus just listening to me talk at you. I find that it is more useful to experience things. And then we're gonna hopefully enhance your own clinical self-regulation for really strengthening the therapeutic alliance, right? We all know that the therapeutic alliance is one of the most important, if not the most important factor in positive outcomes for our clients. And so I really want to give you some additional tools in how you can strengthen and work with that therapeutic alliance by using your own self-regulation. So I don't know where you're coming from right now. You could be just starting your workday, or you could have just worked with a difficult client. You could have had a difficult morning at home, or you could have had a wonderful morning at home. I don't know. But I find that if we all start with the same shared experience, it kind of levels the playing field. I find that this grounding exercise that we're going to do really invites you into the present moment by having you really focus on your body. Breathing exercises, and I saw that some of you put that you do breathing exercises to help with emotional regulation, are fantastic. And then if we do breathing exercises coupled with focusing on your body in a way that is intentional, makes it even more powerful. So we're going to do a progressive muscle relaxation exercise, which entails you contracting or tensing muscles progressively, starting from the bottom, your feet, moving all the way up to your face. So you are welcome to do this with me. I will be doing it, and I will close my eyes just because it allows me to really get into my body. You can start by noticing how you're seated wherever you may be. If you don't want to participate, that is completely fine. You can listen. But if you're choosing to participate, begin to invite your awareness to land all the way down to the soles of your feet. And we're going to hold each tension for 5 seconds. And so begin by tensing your feet, your toes, scrunching your soles of your feet as tight as you can, holding that for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and uncurl your toes, flatten your feet, release. Then begin to roll up, go past your ankles, up to your calves. Now you're going to tense your calves. You can do this probably by pushing onto the soles of your feet or however else you like, but tensing your calf muscles for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and release your calf muscles. Then you're going to skip your knees because your knees are joints, not muscles. And then go all the way up to your big leg muscles, your hamstrings and your quadriceps. And however you like, begin to tense those big leg muscles for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Release leg muscles. Then come up to your glute muscles, those big muscles that allow you to climb up stairs and jump and sit. So those glute muscles, you're going to squeeze your glutes for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Release your glutes. Shifting awareness to the front of your torso, your abdomen, your gut. Suck in your gut like you're trying not to get punched for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Belly expands. Then come up to your lungs. Lungs are going to contract, so just going to hold your breath for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and breathe. Come up to your shoulders. Bring your shoulders up to your ears like you don't know. Just squeeze shoulders up to ears for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and shoulders roll down. Then coming down your arms to your biceps. Bring your arms together, bulging biceps, showing off those guns for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and release biceps. Rolling past your elbows, your forearms to your palms. Fingers curl into your palms to form 2 tight fists for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and release your fingers, palms open. Finally, coming up to your face. Your face is very fun because you have a ton of tiny muscles that make you smile and frown and furrow your brow. So however you'd like to scrunch up your face as much as you can, scrunch, scrunch, scrunch up your face for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and release. Face unwrinkles. Final tension. You're going to scrunch up your whole body, tense up all the muscles in your body as tight as you can. And we're going to go for 10 seconds, tensing up your whole body from the tips of your toes to the top of your head for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and body melts into your chair. Nice. So take a minute to notice what may have shifted in your body. If you want to drop that in the chat box, if you notice any shift, Mary, you can share that with us. But I find that, I mean, I already noticed the shift in my body and I'm presenting. But that can be something you can do with a client that maybe comes into a session and you notice that they're a little bit elevated, anxious, speedy, talking really fast, have a lot on their mind, to ground them into the session.
So Sarah said that she is more present.
Great, yes. And so now we're going to just move to understanding what is emotional regulation, right? Because we talk about emotional regulation, and I'm just going to go into breaking it down a little bit for us. And you have all these slides, so I'm not going to read everything on the slide. You can always review them because I want to make sure that we get to all the practical pieces for today. But something that is important with emotional regulation is that it is a skill, right? It's our ability to monitor, evaluate, and modify emotional responses effectively. It's really important that we refer to emotional regulation as a skill, because many times our clients come to us wondering, what's wrong with me? Why do I get so upset and punch things or start crying so easily? Why am I so impulsive? Why can't I just keep cool? And many times it's because they haven't developed these skills, right? If they didn't have a healthy home, healthy models, either at home or at school, or in other social environments, where would they learn these skills? So we want to make sure that we are talking always about these as skills, and that it is about balancing a lot of different things, right? So physiology is just another word for the sensations in our bodies, right? Heart rate, temperature, sweaty palms, feelings in our stomach, right? Because what is an emotion but sensations in our body? And then the thoughts in our head that leads then to behaviors. And all these things work together to create emotional regulation, right? And just because we have a certain sensation in our body doesn't mean that we have to act a certain way or that we have to give in to a certain thought, right? Like we say, feelings aren't facts, right? Feelings aren't facts. Just because I feel a certain way doesn't mean that that's reality, but we want to make sure that we do validate feelings, right? Feelings aren't facts, but feelings are valid. And I'll talk more about that in a future slide. And then emotional regulation is really important when we talk about resilience, right? And resilience is something that we hear a lot. Resilience is our ability to bounce back in the face of adversity. I really like to think about resilience as our ability to recover well, versus this idea that resilience means that we continue to persevere in the face of adversity, right? Sometimes we think about resilience as like, even if it's really hard, we keep going and we keep going and we keep going. But sometimes resilience means our ability to stop, take care of ourselves, and then keep going, right? So sometimes we need to recognize when it is time to stop, recover, and then continue and then persevere. And so emotional regulation can help in that as well. All right, any comments, questions, observations with that piece before moving on to the core framework that I would like to, we're going to go over 3 different core frameworks. Mary, any comments, observations?
I'll let you know.
Okay. And I'm going to go into depth of all 3 of these. So I'm going to mention them first. So the first one we're going to talk about is window of tolerance, which should be, many of you should be familiar with. So Dan Siegel talks about window of tolerance, which really is about the optimal zone of arousal where we want to be in so that we can effectively process our emotions and engage in healthy relationships. Once we are outside of our window, whether it be outside in hyperarousal or hypoarousal, we are no longer, our prefrontal cortex has gone offline and we are no longer thinking rationally, right? And so that's when we can't regulate our emotions, right? Dialectical behavioral therapy by Marshall Linehan has the biosocial model. This is where we will talk about biological vulnerabilities and how important it is to validate our clients. And so we'll go more in depth in this model. And then the most recent model that maybe some of you are not familiar with, but I think is so important with emotional regulation is by 2 sisters. They're both doctors, Amelia and Emily Nagoski, and they have a book out called Burnout, and it is about completing the stress cycle. And all of these resources are on a slide. So you will also get more information if you want to go in depth on any of this, you will have that available. So the first one is exploring the window of tolerance. And as a question, as I'm going through this, is how do you get back into your window of tolerance? So for those of you who do have some working knowledge on window of tolerance, I'm wondering, how do you get back into your window of tolerance? For those of you who this might be a little bit more unfamiliar, or maybe you learned about it a while ago and need a little bit of a refresher, I use window of tolerance with my clients all the time because it is a very helpful tool for them to understand what is happening to them. And so when you look at this slide in front of you and you see that black area, that optimal arousal zone, I would venture to say that in this moment, most of us are in our window of tolerance. Like right now, even though I'm a little anxious because I'm presenting, right? I'm still in my window of tolerance, right? I'm still thinking clearly, rationally. I'm able to look at my notes, look at the screen. I'm noticing what I'm feeling in my body, right? I can notice, I'm a little thirsty. I'm going to take a sip of water, right? I'm still connecting with the sensations in my body and the thoughts that I'm having, right? Now, what happens when we start to move outside of our window into that hyper aroused area, so that red area, right? We begin to move into what is called that fight or flight zone when we talk about the trauma response or the stress response, which is the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. The hyperaroused response is the fight or flight. And in this area, we see things like panic attacks. We see things like rage or seeing red. When people say things that they don't mean, right? I'm sure we've all had clients that say, I got so mad and I said a bunch of things that I regretted later, right? That's a hyperaroused person. When people start to hyperventilate and have a panic attack, that's a hyperaroused person. When people start to punch things or get into physical altercations, that's a hyperaroused person. And when a person is in that state, they are no longer able to think rationally. If you think about a toddler, right, when they are throwing a temper tantrum, they are hyper aroused, right? You can no longer talk to Timmy like, Timmy, I think you should stop throwing yourself on the ground, right? Like that is not going to work anymore. At that point, Timmy is too hyper aroused, and you need to let Timmy cry it out. And then once he's calmed down, you can, have a conversation with him. And at that point, our job as a parent is to keep our child safe. And as an adult, it's to keep our friend or partner safe if they're having a panic attack, right? Or if our partner is very upset, we need to walk away and not have a conversation with them anymore if they are so angry, okay? And as clinicians, we are letting our clients know once you're in a hyper aroused state, the most important thing for you to do is to get back into your window of tolerance. It's not to continue the fight. It's not to try to figure it out. It's to get back into your window of tolerance, right? So that's the psychoeducation piece that we can do for our clients. The same goes for the hypoaroused state, right? But in hypoarousal, we see the blue, right? And so that we associate more with the freezing and the fawning, which is more a sign of depression. We see things like ostriching or getting in under the blankets, not wanting to get out of bed. And that's a state where we see more of the people like not decision paralysis, not being able to make decisions, maybe even some suicidal ideation happening in this state. And so we really want to tell our clients, like when we're in these states of hyper or hypoarousal, we want to really focus on getting ourselves back into our window of tolerance. Now, our window of tolerance, right, is like a muscle. It can expand and contract. What are things that make our window bigger or smaller? Things like chronic pain, lack of sleep, proper nutrition, exercise, genetics, untreated addiction or mental health issues, financial stress, interpersonal stress. So there's a lot of variables that go into our window. So we want to make sure that our clients also know that there are certain things that are in their control, like whether or not they have a proper sleep hygiene, like are you going to bed and waking up at the same time, and things that are out of their control, like the economy, right? And so we want our clients to focus on what you can control the controllables, and try not to focus on what's out of your control, okay? Yes, Mary.
There is a question from
Okay.
Heather. Is overstimulated the same as hyperarousal?
Yes, someone that is overstimulated would probably be considered hyperaroused. Yeah, if someone's overstimulated, they are no longer in their optimal arousal zone. Yes, I would use that same language. Correct. I would say yes. Good question. All right, so I'm going to move on.
There's a comment also.
Yes.
Also systemic trauma, oppression like patriarchy, capitalism, white supremacy, etc., narrows the window of tolerance.
100%. Yes, thank you. So racism, microaggressions, your place in society, socioeconomic status, all of that will definitely play into your window of tolerance. Yes, thank you very much for that. Food insecurity, job insecurity, domestic violence, all those things too. Yes. Yeah, so you want to conceptualize all of that for your client, because they may wonder, like, why am I not dealing with things well? And you want to name all these factors that can be playing into it. So thank you for whoever had that comment. Okay, so moving on to understanding the dialectical behavioral therapy biosocial model. So there are three main components to this model. And again, you'll be able to read all these as I get closer to them. So emotional sensitivity is a core aspect of this DBT biosocial model. It just refers to how some of our clients, and I'm sure you've all seen it, may experience emotions more intensely than others, right? And so this can lead to stronger reactions to emotional stimuli. if you work with people with addiction issues, this can be part of what's going on, right? And so part of it is we want to normalize that. And we want to make sure that we are not saying things that that we're sensitive to, that some people do have a higher emotional sensitivity. It's not that they are too emotional, right? And people will self-medicate with alcohol or drugs, and they will think that there is something wrong with them. And so we want to make sure that we are addressing that we are saying that there is nothing wrong with them, and that we are giving them tools to manage their emotions. And medication can also be part of that solution, right? I do believe in medication-supported sobriety and recovery. That is what I believe in. And but yes, so that is part of this model, and so we want to acknowledge that with our clients. And validation is a huge thing that I see in work with couples, especially. Many people want their partners to validate their emotional experience. Again, validation does not mean that we are condoning the behavior. Many times that gets interrelated, and we want to make sure that I can validate your emotions and I can also not agree with your behavior. The example that I give is when two siblings are fighting and one of them is very upset because the brother broke their toy, and so they choose to hit their brother, right? And I can tell the sibling, I know you're upset, and I see that you're upset, and of course you're upset, your brother broke your toy, you have every right to be upset, but in your anger, we don't hit, right? And so that makes it very clear, like, yes, you're mad, and can we do something with that anger, but we cannot hit our brother. Okay, so we validate the emotion. I don't say, well, what are you so mad about? You know, you shouldn't have let him use your toy, right? That's the invalidation. So we want to make sure we're validating the emotion, but we're also not validating the behavior. And so really making sure that we are validating the emotion, because invalidation can create a lot of dysregulation in our clients. And so making sure that part of this is that we, at least as clinicians, are holding space for the emotional experience of our clients and also our own emotional experience, right? So we are validating our own emotional experience and holding space for our own emotional experience, and that we are finding spaces where we can have our own emotional experience and feel validated. And so that's where like healthy supervision or peer support groups are really important, especially if you are in private practice. I know that I, as a clinician in private practice, have a peer supervision and support group where we meet bi-weekly virtually, and we share and we case consult, but we also just validate each other, especially when things are really tough in our environment and we're going through things with our clients. We also want to be able to have space where we can talk about things as humans. And so I think that's very important. And then chronic dysregulation, right? So this refers to the ongoing difficulty in managing emotional responses due to complex interplay of biological and environmental factors. So this can manifest in various ways, including mood swings, anxiety, and impulsivity. And this is where dialectical behavioral tools, clinicians we can help our clients develop skills. So DBT is very skill heavy. The 4 main skills of DBT, I'll just review them for all of us, are mindfulness, right? So the ability to be present in the moment without judgment. Interpersonal effectiveness. So are we able to be effective in our relationships? Then emotional regulation, which is what this is all about. And then distress tolerance, right? Can we tolerate uncomfortable situations without getting dysregulated? Okay, so those are all very helpful skills. And again, the language of skill building, right? Our clients come to us thinking, what is wrong with me that I can't do X, Y, and Z? Nothing's wrong with you. You just haven't learned these skills, right? Where would you, if no one taught you how to read, you wouldn't wonder like, why can't I read this? Or, you don't come to me saying, why can't I speak Japanese if no one taught you how to speak Japanese, right? And so really trying to reframe it in a way so that they understand, like, there's nothing wrong with you. If no one taught you the language of emotion, how would you know the language of emotion? And then finally, completing the stress cycle. So stress is physiological, okay? So stress is not just a mental thing. We feel stress in the body. I'm sure some of you have heard of stress as like the silent killer, right? Stress can take a very big toll on our body. And that's why it's so important for us to release stress, right? We really want to make sure that when we are under stress, that we are releasing it, both for ourselves and for our clients, right? Because this buildup, especially of cortisol can have a very negative impact on our body. And so we want to make sure that we are completing the stress cycle and not holding on to the stress in our bodies so that we don't build up disease, right? And so stress is not just a mind thing, it's a body thing. And more and more research comes out that the mind and the body is connected, right? One does not operate without the other. It's all connected. It's all connected. And so stress impacts the mind and it impacts the body. And stress is not the same as a stressor, right? So a stressor is the event, right? So for example, this event for me is a stressor, right? Presenting, public speaking, right? Because stress is a stressor. The stress that I'm feeling in my body is the response that I'm having to this event. And so after I present today, I am probably going to go for either a vigorous walk or maybe a run, just so that I can make sure I get all this extra adrenaline that I've had in preparation for this, right? As much as I love to present and I love talking about these topics, but there is an extra buildup of adrenaline that I'm gonna need to release, right? And so it's important that I carve out a little extra time after this so that I can release that extra adrenaline. And so it's important that we think about stress and stressful things in this way so that we are allowing ourselves to complete the stress cycle. And that's what Emily and Amelia Nagoski talk about, right? So when there's a stressful event and it's over, we need to build in some time to complete the stress cycle. Because many times we just like to keep going as if nothing happened, like it's over and we just keep going. And that seems to be how we operate in America, right? Like, okay, well, this is over, the stressful thing is over, and I'm just gonna go to the next stressful thing. And we don't really give ourselves an opportunity to digest that stressful thing. And so I'm wondering if any of you have encountered something stressful and how you take care of yourself after that stressful thing. And if you want to put any of that in the chat box. Like, I also know that one time I was in a car accident and I was 6 months pregnant and I was going to go to my next appointment. And I called the person that I had the appointment with, and she said to me, no, Ruthie, everything needs to stop. Like, you just need to go home and everything needs to stop. And I was like, oh, okay. I guess you're right. Like, yes, everything should stop. Right. And so to give ourselves permission to just stop. And that was a very wise recommendation, suggestion. And then after I talked about it with my therapist, and she said, yes, Ruthie, like, it is really important that when we experience stressful things, that we allow our bodies to recover. Like maybe our minds have recovered, but our bodies need time, right? Our bodies are not like a lamp switch that turn on and off, right? We need our bodies time to digest. Like all those chemicals that are dumped into our bodies after that stressful thing, they need time to recover. And so I really try to honor that both in myself and for my clients. Yes, Barry.
There's a few comments about,
Okay, yes,
excuse me, let me just, okay. I'm a huge fan of walking after a stressful event, yoga. I try to get out of my head and into my body. I will bake or take my dog on a walk. Another one is go for a walk or soak in hot bath.
yes,
Social connection, especially with old friends.
yes.
After doing ART, I sleep a lot.
Sleep.
Walk my dog. I buy myself a Diet Coke and watch my favorite shows.
Nice.
I enjoy listening to podcasts or audiobooks to regulate after a stressful event. Meet basic needs and get the body moving, then relax. Shake it off.
Shake it off.
I have a 20-minute drive home from work, which is a good time for me to unwind and let go of stressful things from my day. I'll often let myself ruminate and process things for part of the time, but then actively try to move on to focusing on home. It helps me sometimes to listen to an audiobook or podcast on the way home.
Excellent.
And the last one is grounding exercises, rinsing and repeating.
Awesome. Wonderful. Thank you all. Those are all wonderful, wonderful ways to complete the stress cycle. So here they are, right? So 7 ways to complete the stress cycle. Have a cry. I didn't hear that one, but crying is a great way to release. Hug it out. So the one with connecting with friends, right? Like hugs are wonderful, right? Get creative. Laughter, have a belly laugh, and connecting with friends, moving your body and breathing, right? And then all the other things that y'all said, yes. So these are all great ways to complete the cycle. And so I would encourage you to remind your clients, right? Like when you have that stressful thing, build in some time afterwards to complete the cycle. Don't just go to the next big thing. All right, so here are some other client interventions that we are going to look at in a more in-depth. And I'll go into each one of these in depth, but for DBT, emotional regulation skills, and these are going to provide client structured techniques to help clients manage their emotions. And these might be reviews for some of you, but we're going to do check the facts, opposite action, and please, which is an acronym. Then we are going to go over trauma-sensitive yoga, which focuses on the mind-body connection, inviting clients to feel their bodies and emotions without coercion. This approach helps develop a sense of safety and bodily awareness. And stress cycle completion strategies, which we talked a little bit about already. They involve techniques that help clients release build-up stress through physical movement, creativity, social connection. These strategies validate the physiological aspect of stress and encourage holistic healing. All right, so starting with the DBT skills for emotional regulation. Mary, did you want to say something?
No, I'm good.
Oh, you're good. Okay, great. So this one with check the facts. This is a skill that if you are familiar with dialectical behavioral therapy, and they talk about it with wise mind. So wise mind is where the rational mind or thinking mind and your emotional mind, right, your gut mind, meet, right? So your wise mind is where your rational mind and your emotional mind meet. And it is only possible for that to happen when we are in our window of tolerance, right? And that is true too for checking the facts. It is hard for us to check the facts, to have rational mind, when we are in the hyper-aroused state or in the hypo-aroused state. So this is a skill that you would teach your clients once they're in their window of tolerance. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. So it's really important that we know when to teach our clients certain skills. And this is where if you have clients that really struggle with anxiety or depression or mood disorder, you really want to focus on stabilizing that first, right? Because it is hard to do the skill building part of therapy if they are not in their window of tolerance. And so making sure that that is addressed first and then going into skill building. Okay.
There is a question,
Yes,
Ruthie.
yes,
Can you repeat what the wise mind is, please?
yes. So wise mind is when according to Marshall Linehan in dialectical behavioral therapy is when rational mind. So there are two minds. There's your rational mind and there's your emotional mind. So rational mind, thinking mind, and your emotional mind or your gut. And these two minds will come together, and that is wise mind. So when both of them are working together, so your thoughts and your feelings are working together, that is wise mind. So that's the wisdom. So your thoughts and your feelings are working together, that is wise mind. Okay. So that's like the ideal, right? Like your thoughts and your gut, your feelings. Because sometimes we'll say things like, oh my gosh, I just made a decision. It was like an emotional decision, right? Like I just was acting on pure emotion. Or sometimes it was like, well, I did what was the logical thing to do, but it didn't feel right, right? Sometimes you say, it didn't feel right, but it was like the logical thing to do. And so wise mind is when it feels right and it's the logical thing to do, right? So that's when both things are aligned. And so checking the facts is what you want to do when someone is is really an emotional mind, right? So this is when somebody is really they're really questioning themselves. They might say things like, nobody likes me, or I feel, I feel like nobody likes me at work. Okay, I feel like this is something that I would hear like a client say, I feel like nobody likes me at work. And I would say like, okay, so what makes you think that, right? What is the evidence? And then I would say things like, does nobody invite you out to lunch? And if the client says, no, I get invited out to lunch, and actually I get invited out to lunch pretty frequently. And the other day, this other person asked me out for a drink after work, actually, right? And so what you want to do is you don't want to tell the client that they're wrong, but you want them to dispute their irrational belief with factual evidence, right? Like, where is the proof? And so you're allowing them to build a case against their irrational beliefs without invalidating their emotions, right? So what you're trying to invalidate is their irrational belief without invalidating their emotions. Okay? Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. So that's checking the facts. This is one of my favorite skills of DBT, and I use it myself, and I encourage my clients to use it a lot. It's called opposite action. Maybe some of you are a fan of it too. But this is really just telling clients to act contrary to their emotional urges, right? when the urges are unhelpful. And so basically this is saying, like, if you are feeling lonely and you're saying, I don't want to call anybody. All right, well then opposite action is you have to call somebody. If you're feeling like I don't want to leave my house, well, opposite action is going to tell you put on some jeans and go to Target. Just get out of your house. Now, if you have major depressive disorder and you literally can't leave your house, I understand that opposite action is impossible, right? And so I want to honor that. But sometimes opposite action is the nudge that some people need when they're feeling stuck, right? Like, I really don't want to go out and walk my dog. Well, put on your tennis shoes, grab the leash, and take your dog out, right? So what you're trying to do is you're trying to build a little bit of momentum, because the urges that they're having are not helpful, right? Especially around loneliness, isolation, self-harm, right? So dialectical behavioral therapy was really developed for self-harm stuff. So, and it's been very effective around that. If you guys want to put in the chat box any other uses that you have with opposite action, but I find that some clients, it really resonates with them because it also takes the negotiating with your brain part out of it, right? If I tell you, you're just going to do the opposite of what you don't want to do, right? So if it's, I don't want to call anybody, you have to call somebody. I don't want to leave the house, you have to leave the house. I want to spend all my money on Amazon, I'm not going to spend my money on Amazon. So it's really trying to get them to not put a lot of thought into thinking about it and just trying to do the opposite to help them feel better. Okay. So I find it to be easily explained to the client and one that some clients can do pretty easily to get them unstuck at times. Again, if the client has very severe depression, this isn't, but then that means that they're not in their window of tolerance. So you can't do skill building when they're not in their window of tolerance. Okay. So none of these things will work if they're not in their window of tolerance.
Ruthie, there's a question.
Yes.
How can we encourage or suggest opposite action without sending someone out of their window of tolerance?
So that's a good question. So if they are in their window of tolerance, you want to give them their, so if they're in their window of tolerance, then the opposite action should not put them out of their window of tolerance. So you want to titrate it in a way that the opposite action is something that they can still tolerate while staying in their window of tolerance, right? So you want them to buy into whatever that action is, right? So if it's, I don't want to leave my house, and you're saying, well, the opposite action would be to leave your house. But if you're saying, well, that's going to put them out of their window because they have agoraphobia, well, okay, then they're not really in their window of tolerance at that point, right? To begin with, right? They're in their house because they're agoraphobic, and then that's not being in your window of tolerance, right? They need medication then for that, if that makes sense.
There is another question.
Sure.
What about things that are really hard for people? For instance, the impulse is to eat emotionally and then regret their decision. The opposite action would be to abstain from junk food, but that impulse feels too strong for the client to resist.
Yes. So, I mean, that sounds like binge eating disorder, right? So, there has been a lot of talk right now about GLP-1s and how effective they have been for people with binge eating disorder. And I mean, that this is really serious, but Wegovy and Ozempic and these GLP-1s could really revolutionize how people are dealing with this compulsion to eat, because it's not that they're weak. It's not that they don't have the willpower. It's not a willpower thing. And so I wouldn't tell that person like, well, just don't eat, right? Because that's like telling the alcoholic, right? So opposite action doesn't work with an alcoholic, right? If I were to just say, well, if you want to drink, just don't drink. If you want to smoke a cigarette, just so that's a great question, right? So if this person has an eating disorder or disordered eating, and it's around food, then it's not about opposite action, right? They need a lot more support than just telling them not to compulsively eat. So they might need to go on like a GLP-1 or some other. There are other medications that can help with binging, or they could go to like Overeaters Anonymous. I mean, they need some peer support. It's a lot more complicated than opposite action. Opposite action is really it's around emotional urges that are not meeting the diagnosis for more of like a addiction behavior or compulsion or compulsive behavior, if that makes sense. Does that answer their questions, or do they have follow-up questions? No? Okay. Yeah, but yes, I mean, binge eating is very real and very prevalent, just like binge drinking, or abusing drugs. And so opposite action would sound like trivial to those individuals, and I don't want to minimize those struggles. So opposite action is really for someone that is not having a compulsive response to some of these behaviors, but it's more for someone who's like, yeah, I just, I really know that I should call a friend when I'm feeling lonely, but I don't want to, or I talk myself out of it. And then that's when you would say no, opposite action, right? So that's the language that you're looking for. Or like, my alarm clock goes off in the morning and I really should go to the gym, but I talk myself out of it. Opposite action, if you don't want to go to the gym, just get up and go. I really should stop buying myself, these extra pairs of shoes, but I can't stop. I go ahead and buy it. Opposite action, don't do it. So it's these emotional urges, but that are not meeting the criteria for compulsive behaviors. Okay. Great questions. Okay, this is an acronym. So for your clients that like acronyms, kind of like there's another acronym, HALT. And I can mention what that one is if you don't know that one, but please, the please skills comes from DBT, and it stands for, you want to treat the physical illness, eating, avoiding mood altering drugs, sleep, and exercise. So again, this talks about how to basically get into your window of tolerance, right? So you want to take care of your physical pain. You want to eat something. If we've all heard the phrase hangry, right? Hungry and angry, hangry. But if we're hungry, we've all seen a baby that needs to eat, right? They're inconsolable, and we are no different as adults. So we want to make sure that we are eating regularly. For those of us clinicians, make sure you always have snacks in your office, because it is not fun to notice that you have gone multiple hours without eating, and nobody likes a hungry therapist. So make sure you have food in your drawers that you can eat between sessions if you're not able to go have lunch. And if you work at a place where you have to see crisis clients, right, where they might book a client during your lunch hour, always have snacks, right? Granola bars, nuts, cheese sticks, bananas. Make sure that you are taking care of yourself around eating. Avoid mood altering drugs, right? So for you and your clients, and if they have addiction issues, normalize it, right? We all struggle, and that there are solutions for that. Sleep, getting your clients and yourself on a sleep schedule, that is so critical. And it's not talked about just how important it is to go to bed at the same time and wake up at the same time. It sounds so basic, but my sister, who's in recovery now, 16 years sober from drugs and alcohol, and she tells everybody, sleep is my superpower. I mean, she is so different now in her 40s than she was in her 20s, and has so much energy. And she goes to bed at 8 o'clock at night and wakes up at 4:30 every morning so that she can go to the gym and go to a meeting before she goes to work at 8 a.m. And I really admire her rigorous sleep schedule. And then exercise, right? We want to move our bodies. Our bodies were designed to move. And it doesn't mean that we are all training for triathlons. It just means that we should walk. Walking is really all we need to be doing. But these foundational self-care skills support emotional regulation by ensuring basic needs are met. So if you can do the please skills with your clients, that can help them stay in their window, right? And it can make their window bigger. And so the bigger their window, the more able they are going to be to tolerate uncomfortable things without getting dysregulated. The other acronym that I mentioned, HALT, is just hungry, angry, lonely, tired, right? Don't get too hungry, too angry, too lonely, or too tired. That's one that comes up in the rooms of AA a lot, because if you get too hungry, angry, lonely, tired, you can relapse. So hungry, angry, lonely, tired, HALT means stop and take care of those things. Okay, now we're going into introduction to trauma-sensitive yoga. And some of you mentioned yoga in your introduction, right? Where you use it to take care of yourself. Just doing a little check. We've been together for over an hour. So if you need to sit or stand and stretch or take care of yourself, please do so. I'm going to keep going, and we will have an opportunity to practice some yoga together in a few moments. But trauma-sensitive yoga, so I did a trauma-sensitive yoga certification out of the Center for Trauma Embodiment in Massachusetts. And I did a 300-hour TSY training. And it really informed my practice, right? So trauma-sensitive yoga really invites clients to come into their bodies in a way that feels safe and authentic to them. And it's really about them making choices and a sense of autonomy. So if you think about trauma, right? So what is trauma? Something happened to you that you did not want, right? And that you couldn't stop, right? So if you think of a car accident, if you think of an assault, but then if you also think about lowercase t traumas like neglect, chronic abuse, microaggressions, those are all traumatic as well. And those are things that you couldn't stop from happening to you. And so trauma-sensitive yoga really wants to empower clients by prioritizing their ability to make choices in the real time and foster a sense of safety and control. And every person, if you're facilitating a class, every person gets to engage at their own comfort level so that they are moving at a pace that feels authentic and genuine for them. And I want to backtrack just a little bit. When I say yoga, I'm wondering what do you think I mean when I say yoga? So what is the definition of yoga? Anyone want to just unmute themselves to define it or put it in the chat box? Like yoga, what is it? What does yoga mean? No.
I'm going to read off the responses in the chat.
Okay.
Meditation and movement, physical and spiritual practice, union.
Yes. So the person who said union, all of that is yoga. The simplicity of union, right? And so I'm just going to add to union. Yoga means to yoke, or union. It's the yoking of the mind and the body. That's all that yoga is, right? So at the heart of yoga, yoga is uniting, yoking the mind and the body. And so that really is all that yoga is. And so yoga comes from India, and it really is a spiritual practice, right? That the ultimate, so there are 8 limbs to yoga, and the ultimate manifestation of yoga is enlightenment, right? I think as it came over here to the West, many individuals made it more of like a workout, and there's nothing wrong with using it to get a good workout. But when we talk about trauma sensitive yoga, it really does focus on yoking the mind and the body, right? And so when I talk about yoga in my practice and when I offer it in our community, I'm really inviting people to yoke the mind and the body. Okay. And so if you wanted to bring it into your spaces, with your clients, I would encourage you to talk about it that way too, right? Like just as at the beginning of our shared time together, we were yoking our mind and our body together through that progressive relaxation exercise. Like we could have called that yoga, right? And so really that is what trauma sensitive yoga is about. It just means that we are yoking our mind and our body in a way that is informed by is sensitive and informed by trauma, meaning that we are allowing people to make decisions for themselves about their body. Okay. And so with that, we are really helping clients connect to their bodies in the present moment. And so that is going to be really important for healing, because we want clients to have a different experience in their bodies, right? So much of what happens with trauma is that they are stuck in the past, right? Stuck in what happened to them back there. And so we want clients to have a different experience in the present moment. And so whatever story they have about what happened to them back there can get released in the present moment, and they can have a different experience, and they can notice what is possible in their bodies in the here and now. Many individuals who experience something traumatic in their bodies can feel like their bodies betrayed them, right? And so the body does not feel safe. And so both those individuals will live in their heads, right? Thoughts, a lot of thoughts, and da 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 da, because that feels safe in here. But if you invite people to drop into their bodies, it's like, but my body wasn't safe. It didn't keep me safe, right? And so that's why it has to also be very titrated and gentle, so that it is tolerable for individuals to come into their body in a way that feels tolerable and authentic to them in real time. So grounding and orienting. When I have a new client, I always invite them to look around my office. And so some of you might also do this, but it's really important for people to have some time to look at a new space, right? And even from the moment they walk into the waiting room, I have them look around the waiting room, and I tell them this is where the water is. And I tell them these are 2 other clinicians are in this office. And I say you can also sit in this area, and I show them where the bathroom is, and I say if the door is closed, that means that someone's probably in there. And then I open the door and I have them look into the bathroom, and I say this is our bathroom. And then I show them where we have another exit, and I say, that's a separate exit, which we can also go out of. And then this is my room. And I sit down and I say, have a look around. And that invites a sense of safety. Like, this is a new place for them. And I've learned to do that as a practice for all my clients, regardless of what their history is. And I think that invites their nervous system to begin to calm down. Okay. And so you may want to do that with them. But then another thing that I learned for myself is I try to have something that I can look at that is for my eyesight, not for my clients, that I find grounding and calming for when I might start to get dysregulated in a session. Okay. Because I do work with couples. And so some of you might work with couples. And if the session starts to get a little intense, you might want something for you to look at that is grounding and orienting. And so think about if there is a plant or an object or something that just, you know, that if you look at that, it invites a sense of calm. Maybe there's also a practice that you can do, but just something to think about, because we focus so much on our clients and the spaces that we create for them. But what about you? And then finally, with the trauma sensitive yoga, we want to make sure that our movements are always gentle and accessible, right? So whenever I offer a trauma sensitive yoga class, I make sure that I always say all bodies are welcome, all accessibilities are welcome, and I mean it, right? And so I make sure that I have chairs available. If people don't want to sit on the floor, I make sure that there are spaces if people are in wheelchairs or are differently abled, that they can come and participate anyway. So that it is not about your ability, but that we can all participate together. Okay, so this is because what is yoga? It is simply yoking the mind and the body. And so we want to make sure that we are being as inclusive as possible. And that is another thing that can put people out of their window of tolerance, right? We live in a very ableist society. And so we want to make sure that we are always accommodating all bodies of all shapes and sizes. Any questions on the trauma sensitive yoga part? I think we're good. Okay. And so to follow up on the stress cycle piece from Emily and Amelia Nagoski, just that movement boosts energy levels. So many times when we are experiencing a lot of stress, we want to, like somebody put in the chat box earlier, maybe go take a walk. You know, not to allow all that adrenaline or cortisol that may have been dumped in our body to just stay in our body, to let it out some way. So walking can be great. Or if you can't walk, maybe just doing some jumping jacks in your office. You know, sometimes we can't leave our office, so maybe just jumping jacks or moving in your office a little bit. Creative expression. So for those of you who don't think you're an artist, we are all artists, right? We can all create. And that's, you know, when we were all little, we all drew and made art. And somewhere along the line, some of us lost that, but I think we can all create. And so having some colored markers or some crayons in your office where you can just doodle and make something colorful between session, that can also help release some of that stress that gets built up. Laughter is such an amazing release of stress. One of the things that I like to do between stressful sessions is just getting on YouTube and watching something funny. There's some comedians that I like. So I'll watch some comedians, or there's some late night TV hosts that I'll watch, or just funny animal videos. I don't know if there are some of you who like to watch things that are funny, that if you want to put that in the chat box, but I'm always looking for funny things to watch. So if there are any recommendations that you want to share with me, but yeah, my daughter and I really like watching like funny cat videos. So yes, laughter really, really releases our stress hormones. So, and if you can laugh at yourself, like that is really helpful. You know, some of us take ourselves really seriously. And if we can just learn to have a sense of humor about ourselves, and not to minimize, you know, if there's something serious going on, we don't want to minimize it, but sometimes we do take things a little too seriously. And if we can just learn to laugh it off, that can go a long way too, to reduce our stress, right? Sometimes we take things, oh, it's so serious, and, you know, giving ourselves some perspective, like, is this really going to matter in, you know, 5 days, 5 weeks, 5 months, 5 years? Probably not. And so can I just let it go, right? Giving ourselves some perspective. Affection promotes bonding. So self-hugs does count for the hug count. I heard somewhere that you need 7 hugs a day, and that self-hugs also counts towards that number. So giving yourself a self-hug can help with co-regulation, right? And so making sure that you're giving yourself a nice hug, and then practicing some mindfulness, right? And mindfulness is a practice, reminding ourselves and our clients that our minds are wired to seek problems. So our default setting is threat seeking. Our minds want to look for a problem. And so for us to actively engage in mindfulness, that is the skill, that is the practice. Our default setting is not mindfulness. All right, and we are almost to our practice time, but this is really important. So clinician as co-regulator. So this is a role that is really important. I really cherish this as a clinician. I really try to be an in-person clinician. I know it's not always possible. And for those of you who are working with people in rural places, it might be, you know, you might have to do virtual sessions. And I understand that. And you can do this virtually as well. But I find that I am most effective when I can use myself as co-regulator in person. But so mirror neurons foster connection. And we hear a lot about this with our children. For those of you who are parents, you know, that mirroring affect with babies, right? We want to make sure we're mirroring affect and smiling when our baby smiles and frowning when our baby frowns, so that we're mirroring their affect. But we want to be doing this with our clients as well, right? So we want to be connecting empathically with our clients. So we are mirroring their emotions, right? And so if they are sharing something hard and difficult, we are reflecting that back to them. We want to be promoting a shared emotional experience. It is very difficult for a client when they are sharing something difficult and we are just kind of still face. That is not very effective, in my opinion, right? I think it is really important that if they are sharing something difficult and sad, we are allowed to look sad. Okay, I think we have moved away from that still face, I must show no emotion when our client is saying things, right? And if they're saying something exciting and happy, we need to show excitement and happiness, right? If our client got that job, like, we need to be like, yes, that is so awesome. and really be in the feelings with our clients, right? If we are allowed to cry with our clients. I hope that we have really moved beyond this, I must show no feelings with our clients. Because our clients want to know that we are humans, right? Our clients want to know that we are in it with them and that we are experiencing real emotions with them, okay? And so as much as you are able to allow yourself to feel your feelings with your clients, please do so, because that really will strengthen the bond with them and it will validate their emotional experience, right? Like if they share something difficult and you react in kind, then that is going to validate their experience. And also it's going to tell them that what they experienced is difficult. I don't know how many times I've reacted more strongly than my client, and then they say, oh yeah, like that really was bad. And I said, yes, that was horrible, because they have numbed out to their own emotional experience too, right? So you're also helping them tap into their own emotions, okay? So you're really helping them develop that emotional language sometimes. I like this picture. So we see the client and she's crying and all her feelings are in this big jumble. And then the clinician is like making it three very organized balls of yarn, right? And I feel like that's sometimes what we do for our clients, right? They come with this jumbled ball of emotions and we're like, oh, so you were feeling fear and you were feeling frustration, right? And so we're really helping them develop an emotional language. I have a big feelings wheel in my office and I have them refer to it regularly, right? So it helps them name their feelings, because again, if no one taught them how to name their feelings, how would they know how to do that, right? And so it is really, really important that we help our clients learn how to talk about their feelings. And we want to be able to model healthy self-regulation. So when our clients are saying things, we are also helping them name their feelings. We're modeling self-regulation. So as we are feeling things with them, we're also trying to maintain calmness and focus, right? And we're creating a safe environment for their feelings and responses. I find that this is more pertinent when I'm working with couples, right? My couples can be very explosive. And when I'm doing couples work, I am not going to get big and explosive like they are. I'm going to try to hold that space so that I am going to try to match some of that energy, but I'm also going to hold it so that we can come back and keep a conversation going, right? So you're kind of holding the center for both of them, and it can get very interesting, right? But that's where you need to really maintain your calmness and focus, and that's where I need to look at my grounding object sometimes for myself, right? And if you're noticing that you are getting dysregulated, right? Like what are some of your techniques to keep yourself calm? Because you're human too, right? And if some of the things that are coming up are getting you emotional or dysregulated, what are some of the things that you need to do to keep yourself calm and grounded? And these can be, and please use the chat box to add things that you do to calm yourself while in session, because I would be really curious to hear what other people do. And then we can do micro interventions for immediate regulation with our clients, right? So we can invite clients like, wow, I'm noticing that you're getting really big, or like feelings are getting really big right now. Maybe we could do some breath exercises. Maybe we need to stand up for a moment. Maybe we should go for a walk around the block, right? And so in real time, you're helping them regulate their own emotions. The other thing that I tend to do when I'm finding myself get a little bit dysregulated is I have some hand lotion by my desk, and I might put a little bit of hand lotion on while the client is speaking, and I might just give myself a little bit of a hand massage while rubbing in the lotion, which feels very innocuous because I'm just kind of like, oh, my hands are dry and I'm putting on hand lotion. But that's very, touch is my primary sense. So just putting on hand lotion can help give me a minute, or, taking a sip of water. But anything else, any other techniques that you do to maintain your own regulation while in session with clients? I'm sure some of you have had some big experiences.
So there's a couple of responses.
Yes.
I do need to do more breathing. I just need to practice more.
Mhm.
And another one, hand on heart.
Okay. Yes. Yep. This is a good one. Hand on heart. Yeah.
There's a couple more, tapping, and I do crafts with clients.
Oh, crafts. I love that.
And another is I usually have a small non-distracting fidget toy.
Yes. Yes. I definitely have a basket of fidgets. Excellent. Yeah. So think about what you can have for you. Because again, we are human too, and the things our clients share with us are going to impact us. So the more things that we have to help us stay regulated, because we want to really be able to be in it with our clients, but it's unrealistic to expect us to not be affected by it. And so noticing what is happening to us while we are hearing these stories and experiencing these moments with our clients, we want to make sure we're taking good care of ourselves, right? So making sure we're breathing well, we're sipping water, hand lotion, tapping, and then taking breaks, right? Making sure that we're scheduling our clients so that we have time in between sessions so that we can step outside for a moment, watch a funny video, have something nutritious to eat, maybe do a couple jumping jacks, right? So that we are being intentional about taking care of ourselves. Because it's heavy out there. I don't know about y'all in Idaho, but things are difficult here in Savannah. And so caseload is pretty heavy right now. And so it's really important that you are taking really good care of yourself so that you can continue to take good care of your clients. All right. Did any other comment pop on there, Mary?
There's one more. I keep drinking water at my desk, fidget, and take short walks between sessions when I can.
Great. Yes. Getting outside and taking walks is excellent. Yeah. Anything you can do to move your body, and nature, right? Nature has a co-regulating effect. And so as much as you can get outside and just take some deep breaths in nature, that is going to help reset your nervous system. Perfect. Okay.
And
Yeah.
Ruthie, your comment about how things are heavy in Savannah,
Mm-hmm.
they're heavy out west too.
Okay. All right. So they're heavy. Yes, they're heavy out west. So that just makes it more important, right? That you are taking good care of yourself, because as we all know, we cannot serve from an empty vessel. And so it is really important to be taking really good care of yourself. I have reframed self-care to caring for self, because self-care kind of sounds like I need to get a mani-pedi massage, but caring for self is like, it makes it more, sounds more like, oh yeah, like I have to care for myself. Like it's not just like a nice to do, it's a need to do. And we all need to do it. All right. So this is our opportunity to care for ourselves, because you've done a lot of hearing me talk. And so now we are going to have a little experiential moment. And so this is just a 15-minute trauma-sensitive yoga experience. So get comfy. You can stay in your chair. So this is going to be chair yoga. But you can, if your camera was on, you can go ahead and turn it off so that you can focus on yourself. I'll keep my camera on. But get comfortable. You can take your shoes off if you like. And take a sip of water. And again, participation is completely optional. And this is something that you could do with your own client. And if you're interested in learning more about trauma-sensitive yoga and how to incorporate that in your practice, the Center for Trauma and Embodiment, they do like mini trainings. I think they have like a 20-hour training that you could do. You don't have to be a yoga instructor to do this. Because again, what they're really training you to do is how to invite a client into their body in the present moment, in a way that feels safe and authentic. And so if you want to notice or pay attention to the language that I'm using, everything is very intentional and deliberate. And so I'm happy to answer any questions about it afterwards. And we'll definitely have time for questions at the end of all of it. So perhaps you begin by noticing your breath. Maybe you have both of your feet on the floor. From here, you can bring your chin towards your chest, perhaps noticing a stretch in the back of your neck. You may begin to explore some movement by bringing your chin side to side. And this may be enough movement. Or if you'd like to explore full circles, you can begin to circle your head in one direction. Doesn't matter what direction you circle in. You may notice some sensations in your neck as you circle. And if you've chosen to circle in one direction, at any moment you can circle in the opposite direction. You may choose to continue to circle your neck in any direction, or if you'd like to bring one ear towards your shoulder, allowing the opposite side of your neck to stretch out. You can bring your opposite hand to the top of your head, deepening that stretch. You notice some stretching sensation in your neck and maybe shoulder. Then in your own time, you can release your head and circle your head to the opposite shoulder. Perhaps you grab onto your head, Stretching the opposite side of your neck. Release your head, chin to chest. Lifting your head back up. From here, you can begin to rotate your shoulders up and back if you like. And you may want to move one shoulder at a time, or you can move both shoulders at the same time. And it's your choice how quickly or how slowly you want to move your shoulders. You may notice some sensation in the back of your shoulders or your upper back, some big muscles back there. Option here, you can even put your hands on your shoulders. So you're almost creating some little wings. And then if you are moving your shoulders up and back, you can also rotate your shoulders up and forward. The pace of the movement is yours. And we'll just stay here for a few more moments. Whenever you're ready, you can come back to stillness. Allow your hands to come back down. And bringing one arm up towards the ceiling, it doesn't matter which arm. And allowing that arm to bend at the elbow, like you're trying to pat yourself in the back. Then you might notice a stretch in the back of your arm, and that might be enough of a stretch. Or you can grab your opposite hand and then just give that elbow a little nudge, deepening that stretch. So you might feel that sensation in your arm. You want to give yourself a pat in the back if you like. And from here, that same arm that's patting your back can come forward and stretch out in front of your body. You can take your opposite hand and push it towards your body, and now you're giving yourself another stretch. Feeling that in your arm, kind of your muscle area up here. Then you can let that arm come down. You can do that same arm twice if you like, but if you want to do the opposite arm, just bring the opposite arm up towards the ceiling. Then arm bends back. Yourself a pat in the back. And again, that might be enough of a stretch. If you want to deepen the stretch, just use your opposite hand to give it a little nudge. Then the same arm comes out in front of the body. Stretch. You can check in with your breath. Are you holding your breath? Sometimes we hold our breath when we move. And releasing the arms. From here, bringing both of your arms up in front of you. Just gonna work with our wrists because our hands do so much for us, right? And so begin by circling your wrists if you like. You can circle them in any direction. Option to stay here, or now you can move your wrists up and down, kind of like you've got fishing poles in your wrists, trying to catch a big walleye. And another option here is like you're sprinkling water off your fingers. And then final one here is pick a hand, they stop, and then use your opposite hand to pull those fingers back towards you. So you're stretching out your wrist. You want to pull hard, but just enough to give yourself a little sensation of pull. And then option to do the other hand. And bringing your arms, shaking them out first. Shake out those wrists, if you like. Then from here, option to bring your arms up overhead. Your gaze can follow your arms. And then bring one arm down in front of you and one arm down behind you. And if you like, you can twist, look behind you. So you're doing like a seated twist. Maybe you notice some sensation in your back as you twist. You might even feel a pop. And then whenever you're ready, you can bring both of your arms back up to center. And then option, you can go to the same side again, or if you like to twist to the other side, bring one arm down in front of you and the opposite hand behind you. And you can turn to face the behind you, the opposite side. Then coming back through center, bring both arms back up towards the ceiling. Then bring your arms down to the side, like you're trying to push the walls away from you. And then finally bringing the arms to crisscross in front of you to give yourself a nice big hug. Give yourself a big squeeze. And then your arms can come rest on your lap. We'll do one final stretch. You won't be able to see me, but it's a nice full body stretch. From here, just all you'll need to do is from seated, you have an option to go all the way down and touch your toes. So it's an inversion. But yeah, so option to go from up here, go all the way down, touch your toes. And then use your hands to push yourself back up to seated. Slowly roll your head back up. Give yourself a moment. Inversions are good to reset because the blood flow has to, your body has to pump blood extra hard because you're inverted. So it resets. And then as you're sitting back up, roll your shoulders up and back. And that was about 15 minutes of movement. So take a minute to check in with yourself if you chose to participate. If you'd like to put anything in the chat, any observations, any questions, was that easy, hard, unexpected? What did you notice in your body? What do you notice now as opposed to when we started? Yeah, anything you'd like to write in there, I'd be happy to hear from you.
So I was just going to put in the chat, but I thought I'm reading it out. I was going to say how relaxed I was, and then Devin put in, so relaxed, I want to take a nap. Let's see, that was wonderful. I needed that. And there was a mention up there about the optional options since yoga isn't their friend. And another is, love this, thinking of ways to incorporate my yoga training into mental health. And another, my body was more tense than I realized. Thank you for the guided yoga. Definitely feel more relaxed now.
Awesome. Yes. Wonderful. Yeah, for those of you who have yoga in your practice, I think you can definitely find ways to bring this into your mental health practice, right? There is definitely a way to marry those two. Okay, so I will continue. So these are just summarizing the takeaways from our time together, right? So here, window of tolerance. So really, if you want to take that slide that has the window of tolerance and use it with your clients, I think it really is a helpful framework for clients to understand once they're outside of their window of tolerance, why they act the way that they do, and what are things that they can actively do to stay inside of their window of tolerance, right? It gives them something that they can focus on tangibly so that they don't get so dysregulated, especially getting into that hyper aroused state. the DBT skills for self-regulation. So the techniques, especially the opposite action, which I really like, and then the please skills, right? So the treating physical illness, the making sure that you're eating and that you are taking care of those basic physiological needs, right? Sometimes we underestimate how important it is that to eat well, to sleep well, to exercise, and to take care of your body, to go see the doctor, right? Even just asking your clients, like, are you keeping up on your doctor's appointments? When was the last time that you had a physical? Many of our clients don't do that, and I understand sometimes it's because of insurance reasons. But helping our clients just take care of themselves holistically can help with emotional regulation. Trauma sensitive yoga brings safety into the body, right? So many times with our clients that have had traumatic experiences and the body doesn't feel safe, talk therapy isn't going to get through, right? Like telling a client that their body is safe is not going to be helpful. They have to have a felt sense of safety, a felt sense of safety. So telling someone this is a safe place isn't always the most helpful thing, right? They have to feel that it's a safe place. So showing your clients that your office is a safe place is more effective than telling your client that your office is a safe place, right? Show them that it's a safe place. Stress cycle completion, right? So really important for all of us is that we complete our stress cycles. So for those of you that have highly stressful clients, make sure that you are completing that stress cycle after you work with them, and that you're not just going from one stressful client to the next, because we don't want you to burn out. Because once you burn out, the recovery time is not just taking a weekend off. It is a long time. Burnout is not easy to come back from. And so we want to prevent you from burning out. And so that means that you need to recover well. Clinical regulation sustains the therapeutic alliance. So really allow yourself to be in there with your client, but for you to be able to do that, it means that you have to take care of yourself really well so that you can be emotionally available for your client. All right, so somebody said that they like to shake it off. And so this is the part that I am going to stand up. And let's see if you can see me here. Here we go.
So Ruthie, you're not showing on your screen right now.
Where did I go?
Your video got turned off.
Oh, I didn't do that.
It must have been when you were opening or moving your computer screen. It'll be somewhere by your audio settings area.
Okay. Sorry about that, guys. I got too excited with the shake it off. Okay, let me see here. Can you see me now? No.
I know it's not turned on. It would be video. And it would have a drop down usually.
Okay.
Oh, you know what? Go over to participants. Let's see here. I'm gonna.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, you can turn. There you go.
There
Okay.
it is. Okay, great. Okay, perfect. So we're gonna stand up. So if you're able to stand up. Okay, so we are animals. At our core, we are animals, and all of us who have dogs and cats, we shake all the time, right? As soon as my dog gets off the couch, he's like, and we literally say, shake. It has a song that says, shake it off. And so I think it is a very lighthearted way to release tension in the body. And so right now, I am going to invite you to just shake it off, like literally shake it off. Like shake off all the bad juju and shake off all the stuff that you don't want. And whenever you have a bad interaction with a coworker or a client or someone at the grocery store, just shake it off, like shake it off. And then you can also, if you have a window and you want to shake it out, like I don't want it on me, you can shake it out into the, like get out of here, like yeah, like energetically, right? For energy. And so just shake it off, shake it off, shake it off. So yes, we're shaking it off, we're shaking off the bad day. Shake off the bad day, shake off the bad interaction, shake it all off. I don't want it anymore. It's gone. It's gone. And remember that. So if you can't do anything else, just shake it off and be done with it. So remember that that is something you can do for yourself whenever you have a negative experience. So that is my closing ritual for us to practice. So hopefully you shook it off, and it's not just saying, it's a doing that you can do. And now my next slide. Whoa, what just happened? There we go. And there's all my contact information. So I have a website, I have an email, and I have a very minimal social media practice. I'm presence on Instagram and Facebook, so you can find me there. I'm not super active, but I am on there. But if you do want to get a hold of me, if you have any follow-up questions or anything, I would recommend you just shoot me an email. Is probably the best way to get a hold of me. Or Mary also knows how to get a hold of me. But thank you so much for choosing to spend these past 2 hours with me. I've really enjoyed it. And yeah, any other observations, questions, or comments, I'm here.
There's a lot of thank yous in there. Great presentation. There's just a lot of wonderful comments in the chat, and I'll share those with you later, Ruthie. Thank you so much. What a wonderful presentation, and very different from all of the ones that we've had this year in a wonderful way. I am going to send an email within the next hour out to all of you who attended, and that'll include the link to the survey, which I put in the chat already. So scroll up because there's a lot of great comments in there. And I will put in the links from the session, and check your confirmation email for sorry. Your full CEU requirements. So um, you have to complete your evaluation by Friday at 1, and you can redo it as many times as you want within that time frame. Any questions you have, you can direct to the Empower Idaho email, and I'm going to slap that in the chat. Along with the web page where you will find the recording and the slides later. I'll include the slide link in that email to you. So expect to find the slides and the recording on the website in a couple of days. And thank you all for your participation and attending. And once again, Ruthie, thank you so much. What a
You're
great
welcome. You're
presentation.
welcome. All right, y'all. Take care.
Bye, everybody. Have a great day.